honorable delegates, heads of state, leaders of nations, distinguished representatives of peoples great and small, I greet you not as a career diplomat, nor as a man bred for banquet halls and handshakes. I do not come to you speaking the rehearsed language of polished politics. I come to you as a soldier of my people, as a guardian of a wounded land, as a son of a continent that has carried the cross of the world, yet has never worn its crown. My name is Captain Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso, and today I speak not only for the 22 million souls in my nation, but for a continent whose stories have been twisted, whose pain has been ignored, and whose dignity has been repeatedly auctioned off at the altar of foreign interests. Africa is not Tobago. Africa is not a battlefield. Africa is not your experiment, your puppet, your warehouse of raw materials. Africa is rising not to kneel but to stand. And today I say before this great assembly of nations, Africa will not kneel. One on the false generosity of global politics. For decades you have sent us aid with one hand while extracting our lifeblood with the other. You build wells in our villages while your corporations drain our rivers. You donate vaccines yet patent the cures. You speak of climate action yet continue to fund the very forces that burn our forests and dry our lakes. What kind of generosity is this? The kind that feeds the mouth but silences the voice. The kind that keeps a man alive just enough to keep him dependent. We are not blind to this hypocrisy. Let me be clear, we are not ungrateful for sincere humanitarian assistance, but we reject a global order that disguises exploitation as partnership. We reject financial institutions that lend with one hand and steal sovereignty with the other. Africa no longer wants charity. We want justice. We want control over our own destinies. Too on the chains of colonialism and its modern descendants. Our wounds did not begin with us. They were inherited legacies of an empire-building madness that saw us not as humans, but chiefs, as cargo labor tools. My ancestors were not consulted when maps were drawn with rulers and compasses in Berlin. The borders of Burkina Faso, like those of many African nations, were not carved by our ancestors, but by men who had never stepped foot on our soil, who knew nothing about languages, our tribes, or our spirits. Today, colonialism has a new face. It wears suits, it hosts forums, it signs contracts in Geneva and Paris and Washington. But it still takes without consent, it still dictates instead of dialogues, it still silences instead of listening. If you want to talk about peace, then let's begin by unlearning the arrogance that peace is something only you can teach us. 3. On resource exploitation and the myth of development. They call us developing as if the theft of centuries did not set us back, as if the gold from our lands, the diamonds from our rivers, the oil beneath our feet did not build the very skyscrapers in which this assembly sits. Let us speak plainly. Burkina Faso is rich, Africa is rich. Rich in minerals and culture and wisdom and youth. But you have taught us to measure richness in GDP and export value. You call it development when a foreign company owns 90% of a gold mine on our land. You call it progress when your security forces guard cobalt mines but not our children's schools. That is not progress, that is piracy with legal documents. From now on we will define development on our own terms. Development that puts children in classrooms, not minerals on cargo ships. Development that respects the land, the people, and the soul of a nation. 4. On sovereignty and interference. Why is it that when an African nation makes independent choices, we are called unstable? Why is it that when we seek military cooperation outside the colonial sphere, we are labeled a threat? Burkina Faso has chosen to walk a path of sovereignty that is not a threat to peace. It is a declaration of adulthood. We are no longer under your guardianship. We are no longer your junior partners in diplomacy. We are a free people. If a nation chooses partners that respect it rather than exploit it, that is not rebellion. That is wisdom. Let it be known, no foreign power will dictate the alliances of Burkina Faso. We will build relations based on mutual respect, not historical guilt or present-day intimidation. 5. On terrorism and manufacture wars. You ask why there is violence in the Sahel. You ask why our youth take up arms. But you do not ask who benefits when our minds are guarded by private mercenaries, while our villages are left vulnerable. You do not ask how weapons arrive in deserts that produce no steel. You do not ask why peacekeeping never seems to end the war. The truth is, many of the so-called solutions to African security problems are merely business models. Endless conflict has become a market, and African suffering has become a subscription-based service. Burkina Faso has decided to break that cycle. We will fight terror, but not with dependency. We will secure our nation not with foreign dictates, but with national dignity. 6 on migration and human dignity. We do not want our youth drowning in the Mediterranean. We do not want our brightest minds fleeing the countries that once called us savages. We do not want remittances. We want reasons for our people to stay. Why do our youth flee? Not because we lack beauty, but because we are made to lack opportunity. Not because we hate our land, but because our land is treated as someone else's property. Migration is not a crisis, it is a symptom of wars we did not start, of loans we did not need, of a world order that tells our youth their only value lies outside their own homes. The solution is not border fences. The solution is justice for 7 on Africa's place in the world. Africa is not a mistake to be fixed. Africa is not a failed continent. Africa is the womb of the world, the cradle of civilization, the keeper of tomorrow's hope. We have been made invisible in global decisions that affect us deeply. At the UN Security Council, Africa with 54 sovereign nations has no permanent seat. What justice is this? You call it balance? We call it betrayal. You speak of democracy, yet uphold a global structure where the powerful few veto the dreams of the many. We will no longer whisper in rooms where we deserve to speak with full voice. Aid on faith and spiritual dignity. We are a spiritual people. Before your cathedrals, our ancestors sang to the sky. Before your missionaries, we knew the language of the rivers and the laws of the sacred forest. Christianity came, Islam came, and we received them not as slaves but as seekers. But now we ask, will the church and the mosque stand with us, truly with us, when all people are displaced by greed, masked as globalization? Will your pulpits echo our cries or only repeat the songs of the powerful? Faith, too, must be decolonized. It must walk with the poor, not the privileged. 9 on unity among African nations. This is not a speech from one country. This is the stirring of a continent. You see Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso forming a new bond. You fear our unity. Why? Because it threatens the myth that Africa can only rise under your supervision. We are uniting not to wage war, but to wage dignity, to pool our courage, to share strength, to protect each other when the world turns its back. Pan-Africanism is not a dream. It is our lifeline, and we will build it stone by stone, heart by heart, with or without your approval. 10 to the youth of Africa, to the young boy selling oranges by the roadside, to the girl who walks 10 kilometers to attend school, to the child whose only toy is a stone but who dreams of stars. You are the reason we fight. Do not believe the lie that your continent is cursed. You are the blessing. Do not envy foreign passports. Be proud of your name, your land, your roots. The world may not applaud you now, but the future will speak your name in honor. 11 final words we will not kneel. I do not come to declare war, I come to declare will. So we will not kneel to fear. We will not kneel to foreign banks. We will not kneel to outdated empires masquerading as friends. Africa is not asking for a seat at your table. We are building our own a table where no child eats last, where no nation is silenced because it lacks nuclear arms, where justice is not filtered through the lens of race or history, but shared as breath is shared. This is our vision and this is our vow. Let the world hear it today and always. Africa will not kneel. Today, I am not here to entertain, I'm not here to impress, I am here to confront. I am here to speak the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how unwelcome. Esteemed leaders of the African Union, distinguished delegates, brothers and sisters of this beloved continent, there comes a moment in the history of a people when silence is no longer strength, when diplomacy becomes betrayal, and when handshakes in the dark are the chains that keep a nation down. That moment is now late. Today I speak on behalf of the millions of Africans whose names will never appear in these glossy reports, but who pay the price for every lie written in them. I speak for the children with bloated stomachs and empty classrooms. I speak for the mothers giving birth on cold hospital floors. I speak for the farmers who watch foreign companies fence off the very land our ancestors died to defend. I speak for the youth angry awake and asking how long. You see, the world is changing. Empires are trembling. Colonial mosques are falling. But what remains, what still cripples Africa, is not just external exploitation. It is internal betrayal. And this is the cancer we have come here to treat today. Let me say it plainly, we cannot continue to call ourselves free while we remain mentally colonized and economically shackled. We cannot keep sitting in summits funded by those who profit from our division, and then act surprised when we are handed scripts instead of sovereignty. We cannot solve African problems with European solutions. We cannot beg for liberation while still drinking from the very chalice that poisoned our fathers. I did not come to ask for permission. I came to deliver a verdict. Africa will no longer apologize for saying no. No to false partnerships. No to exploitative debt traps. No to endless interference disguised as aid. No to puppet leadership installed to maintain foreign interests. If that offends some in this room, so be it. If that draws the scorn of former colonizers, let it, because we are not here to comfort oppressors. We are here to resurrect our dignity. And if this union means anything at all, then let it begin today. Let this be the day Africa said no. No to silence. No to fiat. No to exploitation. No to the illusion of sovereignty while begging for budget support. We, the people of Africa, are not poor. We are plundered. We are not backward. We are deliberately held back. Though we are not divided by faith or tribe, we are divided by those who fear what a united Africa would mean. Today, in this very hall, I call for a reckoning. Not with Europe, not with the IMF, not even with our colonial past. I call for a reckoning with ourselves as African leaders, because no enemy outside can defeat us unless we are first defeated within. I speak to you not as a president, but as a son of the soil, a man who has seen what bullets do to children, what sanctions do to medicine, what foreign policies do to freedom. And I say this with a heart that burns. If we do not change course, the next generation will bury us not with honor, but with shame. So today, let this not be another summit of smiles and speeches. Let this be the line in the sand. Let this be the start of a new African century. Let this be the moment the world hears one voice rising from this continent saying, enough, the chains are off. The truth is loud, and Africa finally is awake. No more puppets, no more chains. Brothers and sisters, let me begin with a truth so sharp it cuts deeper than any sword. Africa has never lacked leaders, only lions. We have presidents, we have ministers, we have parliaments and constitutions. But for too long, many of them have been dressed in fine suits, sewn by foreign hands. They walk proudly through golden halls while their people sleep on dust floors. They toast with champagne at donor conferences while their farmers drink from polluted rivers. And why? Because too many of our leaders do not serve their people. They serve their paymasters. This is not leadership, this is puppetry. And today we cut the strings. Let me speak plainly. There are men in this room, perhaps at this very table, who are still reporting back to Paris, to Washington, to London before they report to their own people. There are leaders who fly abroad to sign deals their citizens will pay for with blood, sweat, and generations of debt. There are presidents who come into power through elections funded not by the people, but by foreign embassies and shadowy development partners. They hand over our resources, gold, oil, land, in exchange for temporary power, personal wealth, and photo ops. These are the men who wear the mask of freedom, while bowing to the same masters our ancestors died to escape. Enough. We are not free if we are governed by remote control. We are not sovereign if our budgets are drafted by foreign consultants. We are not independent if we must beg for the right to feed our children with our own grain, to mine our own minerals, to use our own currency. What is this if not the refined version of slavery? Once they chained our ancestors, now they chain our economies. Once they whipped our backs up, now they whip our governments into submission with interest rates, sanctions, and conditions. So I ask you, what has really changed? Is the puppet less dangerous because it wears a national flag? Is the slave less bound because the chains are invisible? To the African people watching me now, I say this: you were not born to be ruled by foreign interests hiding behind African faces. Your soil is sacred, your voice is powerful, and your destiny cannot be outsourced to Brussels, Beijing, or Washington. Leadership is not diplomacy with the oppressor. It is defiance in the face of injustice. And I say to every African leader who still plays this game of silence, the time has come to choose: be a lion for your people or be a puppet for your masters. But now this history is watching, and our children will remember who stood tall and who sold them for silver. This is not about Burkina Faso alone. This is about Africa. This is about reclaiming the sacred responsibility of leadership, not as a privilege, but as a burden carried with honor. And today, with every fiber in my soul, I reject the puppet strings. I reject the golden chains. I reject the throne that comes with silence. If they call me a threat, so be it. If they sanction me, so be it. If they try to erase me, I will rise 10 times stronger, because I would rather die a free man than live as a well-fed slave. And to every young African listening to me, remember this: your freedom will never be given to you. You must seize it with both hands, guard it with truth, and defend it with unity. Today I reaffirm my oath to my people: no more puppets, no more chains, No more masters' time, only Africa standing tall, unshaken, and unapologetically free. The lion has roared, now let the empire tremble. The price is silence, how African leaders were bowed. You ask, how did we get here? How did a continent so rich become a beggar at every table? The answer is simple. Our betrayal was bought and it was cheap. The continent wasn't conquered with guns this time. It was conquered with grants, with visas, with Swiss accounts, with scholarships for our children to make them forget where home is. The truth is bitter, but I must say it. Africa was not only colonized by force, it was colonized by favor. They offered our leaders comfort in exchange for their people's suffering, and many accepted. They came bearing aid but wrote contracts soaked in deception. They offered investment but took control of our ports, our railways, our land, even our skies. Some of you sitting in this hall signed those deals. You sold your people's birthright for a handshake and a motorcade. You traded your country's dignity for a title you don't even control. You took loans that will be repaid not by you but by the barefoot child in the village, the mother with no medicine, the farmer with no seed. You knew the terms were poisonous, but you drank anyway because the chalice was made of gold. Do you not say, they don't need to assassinate us anymore. They don't need to stage coups or drop bombs. They just invite us to conferences, clap when we speak, and send us back home, still broke, still blind, still believing we are partners. But we are not partners, we are pawns. In the price of our silence, a continent drowning in debt, rich in minerals but bankrupt in opportunity. A land where presidents live in palaces but their citizens sleep in fear of hunger, disease, and hopelessness. Do you know how many contracts have been signed in the past decade that give away oil blocks, uranium mines, and forests for cents on the dollar? Do you know how many military bases sit on our soil not to protect us but to watch us? And who speaks up? You are not. Because when you are paid to remain silent, truth becomes the enemy. And when comfort becomes your God, justice becomes inconvenient. But I am not here to remain silent. And I did not come to this summit to be liked. I came to tell you, the continent is bleeding and many of you are holding the knife. You wear the garments of revolutionaries but act as colonial managers. You sing the songs of Kwame Nkrumah and Thomas Sankara, but you quote from the playbooks of their killers. When a true voice rises, you call them a threat. When a young African speaks of sovereignty, you say he is knave dead. When a nation stands up, you isolate it, mock it, sanction it. But no, this Tory asset, no amount of fear, no cocktail dinner, no foreign pressure will make me abandon the truth. I have seen the contracts, I have read the classified letters, and I know that many African leaders were not just bribed, they were bought. They became salesmen of suffering, middlemen for misery, distributors of dependency. And the saddest part, they still smile in the photos, still speak of African solutions, still raise the flag, a flag whose meaning they've long forgotten. I am Ibrahim Traoré, and today I'm pulling off your masks. Yes, you heard correctly. And what I'm about to tell you might cost me my life, but it's no longer time to be silent. France's system in Africa is the CFA franc. 14 African countries still use French colonial currency. 50% of these countries' central bank reserves sit in the French treasury. France applies negative interest to this money, so we pay France to use our own money. Through this system, France transfers $500 billion worth of resources from Africa every year. Does anyone write about this? No. But when France gives Africa 10 billion euros in aid, it makes headlines. Britain's system is more sophisticated. London is the world's money laundering center. City of London, offshore paradise. Every penny stolen from Africa passes through London. Jersey, Guernsey, Cayman Islands, Virgin Islands, all under British control. Africa's wealth hides there. Here are the numbers for you, real numbers. Africa owns 70% of the world's cobalt reserves. Your cell phone, your computer, your electric car won't work without cobalt. This cobalt comes from Congo, but Congolese can't afford cell phones. Africa owns 90% of the world's platinum reserves. Catalytic converters, electronic devices, medical implants, they all need platinum. This platinum comes from South Africa, but South Africans are crushed by unemployment. Africa provides 30% of the world's gold production. Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Tanzania. Gold flows like rivers from our lands, but our people swim in poverty. Africa supplies 65% of the world's diamond production. Botswana, Angola, Congo, Sierra Leone, Billions of dollars worth of diamonds are extracted, but our miners live on $1 a day. Africa owns 35% of the world's uranium reserves. Niger, Namibia, South Africa. Nuclear plants run on our uranium. Paris lights burn with our uranium, but our villages have no electricity. And you still ask, why is Africa poor? No, the right question is, how was Africa kept poor while being so rich? Here's your answer. Colonialism didn't end. It changed shape. You used to come and occupy our lands. Now you come and establish companies. You used to take by force. Now you make agreements. You used to rule with the whip. Now you rule with credit. Let me give you concrete examples. With numbers, names, dates, but you'll never write about these. Glencore, Swiss-based mining giant, extracting cobalt in Congo. 2022 revenue, $256 billion. A tax paid to Congo, $500 million. That's 0.2%. Is this justice? Rio Tinto, British-Australian mining giant, extracting bauxite in Guinea, 20 million tons annually. What's left for Guinea? Environmental pollution and cancer. Total, now Total Energies, French oil giant, extracting oil in Angola, Nigeria, Congo. 2022, profit, $36 billion investment in Africa, dirty pipelines, Anglo-American, founded in South Africa but now in London. Diamonds, platinum, iron, taking everything. What it left in South Africa? 6 million unemployed miners. And these are just the tip of the iceberg. What about the invisible, the secret deals, the offshore accounts, the transfer pricing tricks? Every year, $88 billion in illegal money flows out of Africa. Who writes about this? Every year, $45 billion in aid comes to Africa. Everyone writes about this, but no one says Africa is not the continent receiving aid, it's the continent giving aid. While you zoom your cameras on swollen bellies, there is a huge system working silently in the background. Every day, tons of gold, diamonds, cobalt, uranium, oil leave our land. But how? Here is the system. Step 1, create corruption, bribe our leaders, open offshore accounts, promise them a life of luxury, send their children to your schools. Step 2, make deals, get 50-year, 99-year concessions, ask for tax exemptions, be exempt from environmental rules, ignore labor rights. Step 3, control the infrastructure, take over ports, airports, railways, but only from the mine to the harbor. Don't build roads to the villages. Don't bring electricity to schools. Step 4, provide security. Set up private security companies. Arm them. Declare protesting. Step 5, silence the media. Buy local journalists. Suppress opposing voices. Serve internal unrest news to international media. And this is how the system works. It's been working like this for 100 years, and you don't see this system. You don't want to see it, because you're part of the system too. Who are the biggest advertisers of New York Times, CNN, BBC, oil companies, mining companies, arms companies, pharmaceutical cartels, the companies that exploit Africa? You live on their money, you defend their interests, and America's system is AFRICOM, Africa Command, 46 military bases on the continent. Official purpose, security. Real purpose, resource control. Drones in our airspace every day, listening devices everywhere. They say fighting terrorism, but it's not terrorists, it's people's leaders who are targeted. China is the new player, says win-win, builds infrastructure, gives credit, but in exchange for what? 99-year port concessions, mining rights, agricultural lands, debt trap diplomacy, ask Sri Lanka, ask Zambia, and you write about none of this. Why? Because you're not free press, you're corporate press, your bosses are billionaires. Truth is on the side of the oppressed. God is on the side of those who persevere, and we persevered. We persevered for 500 years. Now it's time for victory. Your lies are finished. Your masks have fallen. Your game has ended. Africa is free. Africa is strong. Africa is victorious forever.